Hi, today I want to show you how you can create your own custom rule using Cloudrail Knowledge package. We have released Cloudrail Knowledge recently. You can read more about it in PyPy and see the code in our repository Cloudrail Knowledge. What I want to show you today is how I can create a custom rule that identify and alert on public EC2 instances. In my Terraform file, I created a simple example that create an EC2 instance that is publicly accessible to the internet. I've set up the route table, the internet gateway, the security group, and the network ACL in a way that this EC2 will be publicly accessible. So the first thing that we want to do in order to develop a rule is we want to include the Cloudwell knowledge package and point to the latest version. We are doing this in order to have a nice autocomplete, and it will be much more easier for us to write a rule. So let's create a new Python file for our rule. Great. So what we want to do, we want to inherit from our base rule. In our case, I'm going to create a rule for AWS. So the first thing that I'm doing is creating a class that inherits from AWS base rule. Let's add the import. Great. So now when I'm inherited from AWS rule, I need to implement three methods. Let's choose them all and implement them. I will start with the get ID. The get ID is the identifier of your rule. So you want to make sure that it's unique for your rule. The other function that we want to implement is a function that decides if we should execute this rule. In our case, we want to make sure that EC2 exists before we execute the rule. So we will use our environment context and check if we have any EC2 exist. The next thing that we want to do is implement the logic. We will need to detect all the EC2 instances that are publicly accessible to the internet. So we'll create an issue object that will accumulate all the issues that we find. We need to iterate for each EC2 in the context object. And check if the EC2 is publicly exposed to the internet. All the properties are pre-computed by our backend logic, and the only thing that you need to do is just use them. More on the property you can find in our online documentation. So once we found an EC2 instance that is publicly accessible to the internet, we want to report an issue. So we'll append to the issue list a new issue item. The first parameter of this object is evidence, a string that identifies the issue that we found. The second one is the exposed entity, in our case EC2, and the last parameter is the violating resource. In public EC2, there are different options for the violating resources. It can be the route table, the security group, the knuckle. You can decide whatever fits for your need. As we said, violating the exposed resource is the EC2 itself. And in the violating resource, I want to put the route table. So in order to do that, I will go to the EC2, to the network interface, and we'll choose the first network interface. And from the subnet, I will take the route table. That's it. Now, in order to have more information about this rule, we have created a rule metadata rule that you can add things like remediation step for AWS console or Terraform. You can decide what type of category your rule should be in. You can give a friendly name and describe the rule and the rule logic. You must have this file in order to run a custom rule. So now when our rule is ready, we can run it. So in order to run it, we'll use Cloudrail CLI. I have created a plan file for our main TF file, and I'm going to use it in order to evaluate the security rules. So what Cloudrail CLI is doing is executing our run command and passing it the plan output. In addition, we can pass a custom rule directory. As you can see, our Cloudrail CLI tool found an exposed EC2 instance and pointing us to the right location on the Terraform file. You can find more information on our public repository, Cloudrail Knowledge, and read all the different tools that we created and also find a few custom rule examples, as well as all the documentation that you need in order to get started. Visit Web Cloudrail app in order to register and run your security assessment tools. Have a nice day.